Welcome to Agree to Disagree, the podcast where two sisters show how you can disagree about everything but still keep that family bond and friendship.
That's right. We're Sharon and Karen, and we don't just see the world differently, we live it differently. Grab a coffee, settle in, and enjoy the conversation. Who knows? You might even find yourself changing sides. Karen.
Hi, Sharon. So energetic. I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. It's a beautiful sunny day on March 4th, 2025 in
It's not
Texas.
March 4th. It's May 4th.
It's May 4th. Oh my gosh. That is called...
They both start with M, right?
That's called my menopause mind.
This is the second one we've recorded today, so we're doing
good.
good. We're doing good. We're doing good.
We're doing good. Got some.
I listened to a podcast, I think I've told you about it before, called Drunk Women Solving Crime. And It's always fun. It's always funny when they do two shows because then they've been drinking for the first show. Then they go into the second show and they're like, and we're feeling good.
Dang. I wonder how that would work with us because I'm the drinker and you're not. So
yeah, but it gets later and later here. So if you just keep drinking and it gets late enough here that I start getting loopy, because I start getting loopy when I get tired.
Yeah, that might work. We may think about that tonight.
So today...
What are we talking about today, Sith?
Today, we're going to talk about the Second Amendment, aren't we? This one's going to be interesting. We are on very different sides of the spectrum on this one.
We're on different sides of the Second Amendment.
Wait,
you disagree with the Second Amendment? You disagree with the Second Amendment?
I disagree with the interpretation of the Second Amendment. How about that?
Really? Really? Okay, interesting. What is your interpretation of the Second Amendment?
That it's a right to bear arms.
You mean just physical arms on our bodies?
No, not that kind of interpretation. I don't have a problem with being allowed to own guns. I have no problem with that. I have a problem with people thinking that they have a right to own assault weapons that are military grade weapons. I have a problem with people thinking that we shouldn't have more gun control. Not that you can't own a gun, but that there should be a lot of restrictions around it. You know,
there are a lot of restrictions.
There are not that many restrictions. There are not that many restrictions. Come on. It is easy. They sell them in Walmart. You can go into Walmart, just about anyone over the age of 18 and buy a gun.
You still have to.
Oh, fill out a form.
Fill out the
before
forms,
you take walk your gun outside.
You have to get.
In some instances, at gun shows, you don't have to do that. So there are ways around those laws. Any laws that are currently on the books.
I think at gun shows, you still have to fill out the forms.
Yeah, but you walk out with a gun.
I've been to gun shows. You still have to fill out the forms. Now, so let's talk about the Second Amendment, Matt. Do we have the Second Amendment? Can we read the Second Amendment just for our two listeners? Well, I do have it in my phone. You know me. I just take pictures of stuff.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Okay. So I'm going to read you something. So you think the interpretation has been taken
way out of context.
So there's nothing in the Second Amendment that says there should be laws and regulations around everything. But there are, because we're not stupid, okay? There are laws and regulations, but nowhere in the Second Amendment says, and you can only bear arms under these circumstances, and if you don't have mental health issues, and if you're not a felon. It doesn't say that. It just says you're allowed to bear arms. Now,
yeah, but it also says, no, if you want to take it literally, it also says a well-regulated militia. So you could take that to mean only if you're part of a well-regulated militia.
Okay, but let me read you something, and this is from my favorite president, Thomas Jefferson. Laws that forbid the carrying of arms disarm only those who are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailants. They serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides, for an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man.
That has nothing to do with what I said a minute ago.
It does.
It doesn't.
The more regulations and the more laws that you put. Let me finish. the more laws and the more regulations you put on the law-abiding citizens only create advantages to the criminals that don't abide by any laws and regulations. Those
by making that statement, you're saying that the number of criminals outweigh the number of lawful citizens, which is not true. And I never said that I disagreed with the fact that people have a right to own guns. I have no problem with people owning guns, but I think that there should be laws around them that keep people safer. I don't see the reason for assault weapons or machine guns or rapid fire weapons in the hands of civilians.
Okay, you know what? I agree with you there too. I don't think that that the law-abiding citizens need assault rifles.
So why does the Republican Party fight regulation on trying to ban assault weapons?
Because they are interpreting the Second Amendment very literally. They are interpreting it as like, we have a right to bear arms, and there's nothing in the Second Amendment that says what type of arms those are. That's where they're coming from in my book. And when I hear my husband talking about it, I personally, though, and I have actually said this to him, I don't think the regular Joe needs assault rifles or
hand grenades or tanks or rocket launchers or anything like this. Military grade equipment should not be allowed to be owned by civilians. And I don't agree with the argument that the right uses that this is to protect ourselves from the government. Oh, come on. If it's a contest between civilians and government, the government's going to win. They have outgunned everyone in the civilian world.
Well, so let me read you this quote from Thomas Jefferson, though.
How many quotes? See, how many quotes can we get from Thomas Jefferson today? That's two.
I have several of them saved because he was my favorite president. When the people are afraid of the government, that's tyranny. But when the government is afraid of the people, that's liberty. So maybe the argument you just said when you hear conservatives or Republicans say, no, we have to have military grade so that we can protect ourselves from the government. If we're afraid of our government right now, maybe we are living in a tyranny type of society for the last 25 years because we've been a little afraid. I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't think anyone's more afraid. I don't think anyone's more afraid of the government than Democrats are right now of the current government.
Oh, no, we were pretty afraid the last 4 years.
Why?
But when the government is afraid of the people, that's liberty. So if the government is regulating our ability to bear arms, if you think, though, I'm trying to give you the why behind conservatives. If the government can take our guns, regardless of what arms they are, then they're not going to be afraid of us. But if we have the power, militarily type of power to be able to protect ourselves against our government, that's freedom.
But
that's liberty.
You're never.
That's what Thomas
civilians
Jefferson
are
saying.
never going to have. Again, if you look at the Second Amendment, it says a well-armed militia. So in that respect of if you are part of a civilian militia, then yeah, maybe that you have the chance to fight government. But that is not the case. You're not talking about a well-armed or organized militia. You're talking about individual citizens. And there's no way that you're going to get enough individual citizens with enough firepower to fight the U.S. military.
Oh, I don't know. So what you're saying is you don't think that if the government started to turn on the citizens of the U.S., those of us who do bear arms, you don't think we would get together and form and get organized?
You could try, but you're not going to be able to outdo the U.S. military. You're not going to be able to outman them, and you're not going to be able to outgun them. It happened when?
It happened during the Civil War.
Oh, the Civil War. Come on. The U.S. military did not have the weaponry that they have today.
No, you're right. But citizens united. You're telling me citizens won't unite against the government.
Okay, let's talk about the Civil War. Let's talk about the Civil War. The citizens united against the government, and who won? The government or the citizens that united against them?
So,
even back then, the government won.
Well, yeah, but also, I mean, the government was right. So,
your argument completely disintegrated right there. The government still won.
The government may have won, and there were a lot of deaths,
Yeah, but you're talking back at the Civil War.
Fighting. But
now
they're saying it will never happen. It will never happen. It was a 4-year fight.
I'm saying
and
if it happens, the U.S.
but
military
you
has
said-
more power and weaponry to wipe out any kind of resistance that civilians can put up.
But this is what you may not know. Actually, the military, every single person that joined the military has to take an oath that they will not fight and shoot on their own citizens.
Well, that's comforting considering who's in office right now. That actually gives me some comfort.
I'm so glad. That's my whole purpose for being here.
Well, because you know that when he was in office last time with the protesters that were outside of the White House, he actually asked the general to shoot the protesters that were blocking his path in the knees. And they said the military will not do that.
See, proves my point. But you said that there could never be an organized militia against the government. And I'm like,
I said successful. There can never be a successful one against the government.
But there was an organized militia against the government, though, back during the Civil War. That's what that was.
Today, you really think that there could be an organized militia that could even have even a remote chance at fighting the government?
What I'm focused on is your comment just about you're never going to get citizens to organize into a militia. And I don't think that's
not one that is capable
statement.
Of defeating the U.S. military.
Well, but if the military takes an oath, every person in the military takes an oath, they're not going to shoot and fire. Of course, they say that's an oath that they take. However, there are times when our government has sent in the National Guard or sent in troops into areas. I don't know
against
that we've shot
militias.
At people. I don't know that we've shot at people, though. I think 'cause that's where I think it draws the line, is shooting at people. But so read the Second Amendment one more time.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Again, I don't have a problem
with the
right to bear arms. And this is the thing that I don't understand.
So we agree on that. We agree.
But coming from the conservative standpoint, I don't understand why. Number one, and you and I have had this conversation in the past where you made the statement, correct me if I'm wrong, but you made the statement to me before of they're coming for our guns, meaning Democrats. And I cannot ever remember a Democratic candidate or president saying, I want to take away all people's guns. It was only ever about regulating, taking away assault weapons and regulating how people can get and own guns, but not taking them away.
Let me see. That's interesting because I'm not saying you're wrong about me saying that.
And
But
you think I'm wrong about...
No, what I'm going to go back to, I'm thinking that is where the media has propagated that narrative.
Yes, I totally agree with that. On the right, they propagate the narrative that they're coming for your guns. They want to take away your guns, which is not true.
Right.
And on the left, I'm not sure what they propagate on the left about gun control. Because I've never heard anyone say, yeah, we want to take away all people's guns. I have a friend that lives in Ireland, and she said they have a lot of guns, but you will have random checks. The local police will come to your house, and they have the ability to come to your house and inspect that your gun is locked up in a cabinet as it's supposed to be. And if it's not, then you potentially could get your gun taken away.
Really?
So again, restrictions and gun laws for safety purposes, I think, are not a bad idea. It makes me sad when I see pictures of children with machine guns in their hands, posing in pictures with their family.
I can't stand that.
With
that
guns.
Bothers me too.
And
that bothers me too. So I do think that was a false narrative on our side, saying that, they're coming for our guns. They were coming for the ARs.
Yes.
The automatic rifles. Not
Which
even
you
ARs,
and I
actually around.
agree.
Automatic rifles and things like that.
Which the majority of the public.
Personally, I don't feel like people need that. If you're a hunter, you are not hunting with ARs.
Right.
You're hunting with rifles.
Right.
Like if you hunt deer, if you hunt feral pigs, you're hunting with rifles. You're not hunting with ARs.
Right.
So I agree that I don't really have a problem with those not being in the hands of civilians. And as it's coming out of my mouth, I'm envisioning my husband behind me screaming at me
Don't come for my guns.
Like, totally. I just got this like vision, he's like, what the hell are you saying?
But even actually the majority of the population, in polls that I've seen, the majority of the population supports tougher gun laws.
They do.
And background checks and all these things. And to me, this goes back to the party issue of do not believe that Republican and Democratic congressmen are necessarily doing what the people want. Democrats did it with the laws for the woke issue and the transgender laws and everything that they were trying to say, this is what the people want, when it wasn't what the people wanted. And Republicans are doing it with gun laws. They're saying people don't want gun restrictions or common sense legislation about background checks. Yes, they do.
Yeah, I read the same thing. I read, because I went to Pew Research, and they said the majority of people, regardless of political affiliation, really do want there to make sure that there are
that it's safe,
laws and gun restrictions, and that it's safe, and that they don't get in the hands of criminals, of individuals with mental health issues, and those are on the books already and stuff. Now, definitely more left wants more laws and restrictions, right wants less laws and restrictions, but they all agree that there needs to be laws and restrictions.
Right.
The only thing that I found that was kind of interesting in some of my research was, well, first of all, I thought it was interesting that the majority, almost 60% of gun deaths in the U.S. are by suicide.
Which would go to the mental health issue. I mean, which is a whole nother...
a whole nother topic to talk about.
We're not getting the mental health we need.
But also, I don't know if you researched other laws in other states and stuff, but everybody's always about, oh, Texas, y'all just are open carry and you have guns all over the place, right? I've been asked by people who actually live in this state. I just can't believe that you just have a weapon on your belt when you walk into the supermarket. And I'm like, I don't.
You don't, but you can.
You can, but get this. Did you know that Texas, for all of the states, we're on the lower end of gun deaths in our state. And we have the most open types and most probably loose gun laws.
Yeah, that surprises me.
That actually surprised me too, but we are on the lower end.
But I still don't think that means that open gun laws are good.
But
I don't like the fact that guns are now allowed on college campuses in Texas.
Well, but
and again, to me, this goes back
responsible people having responsible people.
Then why aren't they allowed? Why aren't they allowed in Congress? Because they don't allow them in Congress.
I know. Well, you're not going to like this either. But did you know that in Texas, they actually said that teachers can have them on high school campuses and schools now?
Yeah, they want teachers to have them. They want teachers to take them into the classroom. Yeah. So not only do we not pay our teachers, and they're overworked and they're underpaid, we want them to now be responsible to
provide safety.
Not even provide this, to give their life for their kids and to possibly shoot a kid. Maybe a kid that they teach that comes in with a gun. They want a teacher to actually shoot them in self-defense. They're putting too much on these teachers.
I'm not saying that you're not, but sis, if you were a teacher, do you want to just be shot by a former student, or do you want to defend yourself and your other classmates?
I don't want to have to be put in that position. I want my country to make better gun rules. This is only an issue in the U.S. Why is it that the U.S. has this issue and no other developed countries have this issue? The mass shootings is an issue here.
Yes, you're right. But guess what? I've heard places where they have outlawed guns, all of the stabbings and killings are just going up by knives, or they're using vehicles to kill. Like, if you want to murder somebody, if you want to commit suicide, you will find a way to do those things, those bad acts.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be with guns, but you will find a way.
With assault rifles and with these high-power weapons.
Well, we've already talked about the assault rifles. We've already said no to assault rifles. You and I agree on that.
Yes, but it goes to the heart of these mass shootings, which mass shootings is what's happening in schools. And this is why they're saying that now teachers need to carry weapons. But these kids are not walking into schools with handguns or rifles. They're walking in with automatic weapons to kill as many people as they can.
My question to you was, would you want to be in the classroom as a teacher and you've got 20 kids that you're teaching right now and a former student walks in and you have no way to protect yourself or those 20 students and you're just going to, but if you had a gun in your desk that you were already had pulled out and the minute that guy walks in or that girl walks in, you take them out.
I would have to think,
your 20 students and yourself.
I would hope that I would be in a position where I would never have to be in that position because I don't think I could do that. I don't think that I
you're
could.
not, okay. Then you're answering the question. Because I was about to challenge you saying you're not answering the question. So you're saying even if you had a gun, you would not be able to stop that person from killing 20 of your students?
I don't know. Because I'm not a gun person, I don't think I would ever own a gun. I would not want to. If I was faced and I was teaching in a school and they said, now you have to bring a gun into the classroom, and like you don't have a choice.
They're not saying you have to. They're not saying you have to.
Well, if I had a choice, I wouldn't take a gun into a classroom because I would be too paranoid that then what do you have to do? You have to lock it up. What if the teacher's key gets stolen and a kid gets a hold of the gun in the classroom? How would I feel if a student got a hold of my gun and shot someone else?
You would feel terrible. But how would you feel?
Yes, but then I would be responsible because I took the gun into the classroom.
But you're still going to feel bad if somebody walks in and shoots that kid.
Not as bad as if I provided the weapon or I lost the key or someone broke into where I had it.
Think about how bad you feel if they came in and they killed all 20 of your students.
And let's even take that issue.
Couldn't stop it.
So every classroom now has to be equipped with a safe, with a key. Is it a code? How do you keep the gun safe in the classroom? Because you cannot have it just open.
It'd have to be a code.
Okay, so the code what? How do you're going to remember the code in a crisis situation? What if the teacher can't remember the code in the crisis situation? Then what?
Then whatever happens, happens.
Instead of trying to do this, instead of putting a gun in every classroom,
how are you going to solve mental health illness? How are you going to solve mental health issues?
You address mental health issues.
But
and
how are you
in the same time,
how are you going to do that?
At the same time, you put tighter gun control laws in place so that people don't have the access. They're not strict enough.
There's already a law on the books
they are not strict enough.
People with mental health issues are not allowed to have access or buy guns. There's already a law about that. Everybody that's getting these guns are getting them illegally or getting them from parents or getting them from friends or getting them on the streets.
So getting them from parents. So how do you feel about holding parents responsible for the kids that get a hold of their guns in their house? Are the parents responsible for those deaths? Isn't it the case now that parents are starting to be held responsible?
Yes, that is the case.
Do you agree
with that?
That's
what's going on. I think we'd have to talk about that during another podcast because there's a lot of nuances to mental health.
Well, to me, it's not even a mental health issue. If a parent has a gun in their house, isn't it their responsibility to make sure that it is locked up safely so that their child can't get access to it?
Yes.
So they should be held responsible.
But just because it's locked up doesn't mean that a child with mental health issues could not get into a safe or break open a lock or find the combination.
But again, so this just goes back. You just think the answer is more guns.
No, I don't. I think the answer is dealing with mental health issues. You think the answer is getting rid of all guns.
No, I didn't say that. I don't think it's getting rid of all guns. I think it's having better laws in place.
And I did not say, and I never said we need more guns. What I'm saying is there are already laws on the book to keep criminals, felons from owning guns, to keep mental health patients from owning guns, to have things locked up. And like you said, now they're starting to, if an accident happens in a family where one child kills another child because that gun was not locked up, they're going after the parents. Now, do I think that that's fine? You know what? That was an accident and it's a horrible thing. So now let's go after the parents and make their life even more horrendous.
No, I'm not even talking about when it's an accident. I'm not talking about when it's an accident. I'm talking about one of the last mass shootings that occurred. I mean, they happen every day, but one of the...
They do not happen every day.
They happen a lot.
It's not every day. Oh my gosh.
You asked me a question. It depends on how you define it. It depends on how you define mass shooting. I was talking about, should the parents be held responsible if a kid walks into a school and commits a mass shooting? Because you were talking about just if one kid accidentally shoots another inside the house.
Yeah. Well, those are two situations where if the kid got a gun from the parents and it was the parents' gun, you can't hold them responsible for one incident and not hold them responsible for the other if you make a law saying that they're held responsible. That's what I'm saying. But when you agree, if you're going to make the parents responsible, they're responsible for either
I agree.
issue.
Agree. If they're not keeping it locked up away from the kids, then they should be held responsible.
And to go back to this conversation about the automatic rifles, I had this conversation with my husband, who is far right. And I've said I don't see the point in citizens owning those types of guns. He goes back to, it is our constitutional right to bear arms. It doesn't specify what type of arms. And when the government comes after us, we need to be able to defend ourselves. And we can't do that with just pistols and rifles because they're going to have assault rifles. We need to have assault rifles.
Yeah,
if they're going to come and attack us.
But still, that argument to me doesn't make any sense because even if you have assault rifles, they have assault rifles plus drones, plus rockets, plus bombs.
That's why the right wants all of the other stuff.
Well, but then that's ridiculous.
They don't need grenades. They don't need this and that, But
that's not a legitimate argument, in my opinion, because you're never going to outgun the government.
But if you go back to Thomas Jefferson's quote, when the people are afraid of the government, that's tyranny. But when the government is afraid of the people, that's liberty. How is the government going to be afraid of the people to give us liberty?
Because we vote them
ourselves in the same way.
No. How do you see? You interpret that as he is saying they need to be afraid of you physically. The government is afraid of the people with their power to vote them out of office. That is the power that the people have. It is not a physical hold a gun to the government's military. You're interpreting that a different way than I am.
No, here's another one of his quotes. The government you elect is the government you deserve.
Well, which is what every Democrat is saying right now about the Republicans.
Whatever Republican felt for the last 4 years, they were going, hell no.
Yeah, but they were saying we didn't elect him. The election's not legitimate when we lose. It's only legitimate when we win.
Exactly. And that's exactly what y'all are saying, too.
No. Democrats are not questioning the legitimacy of this election at all. I have not seen one person question the legitimacy of this election. No one came out and said this was a stolen election or this wasn't fair. No one.
I haven't heard it, but I don't listen to the news. Here's another quote from Thomas Jefferson. I'm just in love with Thomas Jefferson.
Well, I haven't heard that, so it couldn't be happening.
Agreeing with you.
Okay.
That's what that meant.
What's your quote?
A true patriot will defend his country from its government.
Well, that's a quote I think all January 6 people are standing by. It's like, it was my duty. And it's like...
Probably. That probably is where they're coming. So we agree that it's okay to bear arms.
Yes.
You think that there's no way there could be an organized militia in today's day and age. I say the Civil War showed you that there could be. Say there's no reason for assault rifles and cannons and tanks and grenades. I say I agree. I don't think citizens need all of that. But speaking from the conservative mindset, where they're coming from is in order to protect ourselves from the government, if or when the government becomes a tyranny, we need that in order to protect ourselves. If it gets to a point where the government is trying to become a military, authoritarian, a dictatorship or whatever, that's where the right comes from.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm saying all of those points from the left side, we say we have never tried to take all of the guns out of the hands of the people. All we want is
all the big ones. But y'all do want more restrictive laws and what
common sense laws.
We already have common sense laws.
Well, we don't think that they're common sense laws because they allow people to own automatic weapons and military grade weapons. So to us, they're not common sense laws.
Okay. But that's a different.
No, but I'm telling you where the left is coming. Yeah,
I know.
But I'm telling you where the left is coming from is that we want more common sense laws, which the right, I think in principle, the public agrees with that. It's the policymakers that turn that and the media that turns that into they want to take away our guns.
They want to take away our guns. Yes, which is not what it's about. I still think, though, it's fine that we don't have all the assault rifles in citizens' hands. However, only because we don't have a country right now that I think where we would need them. But see, this is where the right comes from. Governments can become too powerful. And then if we don't have the means in order to protect ourselves and our families, then we're at a disadvantage. Okay, let me finish this thought. That's where the right's coming from. The government is saying, we're going to take all of these other things away from you, not your pistols and rifles, but we're going to take all this other stuff so that you cannot be more powerful from us in a dogfight.
Well, from the left perspective, that's a ridiculous argument because in a dogfight, you're never going to win. No matter how many assault rifles you have, you're never going to be able to outgun the U.S. military. It's just not possible. They have planes, they have bombs, they have rocket launchers. It's not possible.
I see your point.
But I think, again, I think this goes down to it's not how the right or the left feel. It's another issue of the majority of the people want common sense legislation. And it's the policymakers and the media that are the ones
that
blocking
keep blowing
that.
it at her because of the way that they propagate the wrong narrative.
Right.
You agreed with me.
Yes, I agreed with you. Look at that. So we know that we were going to disagree on this one because we've always disagreed on this one.
We did. We've always disagreed. Yeah. Well, I know it's going to be a fun one too.
All right. So that wraps it up for gun control.
Absolutely. It was a good one.
All right. So next time.
Okay.
Same time, same channel.
That's right. Same bat channel.
Same bat channel, same bat time. Okay.
Boom, pow, wham.
All right. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.
All right. Bye. That wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review. It helps us improve and get the word out.
Reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram or shoot us an email at agreedtodisagree@gmail.com.
Let us know what you think, what topics you'd like us to cover, or any questions you might have. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.